Welcome to the Photo Op Podcast, show where we talk about all things photo and video. No, this is not NPR, even though I've got sweet, sweet sounds. So I'm your host, Ben Lucas.
And I'm Stuart Marlantis.
And this is Photo Op.
It is.
Today,
someone is wrong on the internet.
I had to start us with the sweet, sweet sounds because we're going to be yelling at you for the rest of the episode. Okay.
Well, not yelling at you. We're going to be yelling at somebody that we disagree with.
God, dear Lord. Okay,
very
so
significantly.
We're not going to call this person out, but it's a public article, so it's not that hard to find. Here it is, right here. This is the article. It's on the screen. But yeah, reasons why beginners should avoid entry-level cameras. They should really F this article and stop producing BS like this. Oh, dear Lord.
We got to go for the cheap shots right away.
We do, absolutely. Seriously, you know who you are. Take a look at your staff. Analyze the content. Maybe have a critical eye when you're thinking about the stuff that they put out. Because this article is complete bullshit.
Actually, I don't know. Or like, does F-Stoppers just like let anybody write for them? Is that why?
No, because I applied and they didn't hire me. So.
Oh, okay.
So no, apparently they won't let just anyone do it. I'm not old enough or white enough.
Your opinions aren't bad enough.
Oh, there we go. There we go. All right, no. So this article is terrible. We are legit going to break down that we're not expecting you to read it.
No.
We're not even going to link it. We're just going to break down some of the arguments that this article makes and tell you why they're bad. They don't deserve any more advertising traffic than they already have. This is just terrible. All right, so reasons why beginners should avoid entry-level cameras. Would you like to start us off today?
Sure. Do I really want to?
All right, I'll start us off today. Okay, so the first thing that they said is you shouldn't spend any serious money until you know you're going to stick with photography. Was that your thing, or is that what they said?
No, that's not what they said. That's what I said.
That's what you said.
Yeah.
What did they say?
They said, well, we're going to bounce around a little bit because we're just so mad that we can't keep this cohesive.
This is
but the point of a lot of this was that like you should spend money right away. You should spend money on good tools. You should spend money on something that you should grow into. And my response to a lot of this, just right out of the gate, a lot of these arguments is don't. Or if you're just getting into photography, that's probably the person that's shopping for an entry-level camera is somebody that's just getting into photography. If you're just getting into photography,
it's almost like entry level means no prior experience.
Yeah,
wink, wink, employers.
Let's be honest. You may not know if you're going to stick with photography long term, and if it's not for you, that's okay. So don't spend $6,000 on a body on a hobby that you might not continue to pursue or career path. Like that is just like my response to all of these in one shot out of the gate.
Yeah,
is
absolutely.
Please do not spend serious money until you know you're going to stick with it. Once you know you're going to stick with it, spend as much money as you want. Do what we have and spend way too much money all the time.
Oh, dear Lord. I have spent way too much money.
But at least we know that we're into it. Don't do that until you know.
Yeah, I've been a full-time photographer for 10 years. Let me tell you, every time someone gets jealous of my photography setup and walks up to me and goes, wow, so what stuff are you using so that I can buy the same thing? The first thing I tell them before I tell them what any of my stuff is this didn't happen overnight. Because that's really important. You can't just walk into a thing and be like, oh, he's got $80,000 worth of gear. That's what I need. No, you don't. I've accumulated all of this junk over 10 years of a career.
And also that gear is oriented specifically toward the work that you do and that you like to do. If somebody else buys that same set of gear, they might decide, oh, wait, I actually don't want to do this style of photography. I don't want to do this, go after this market. You don't want to pigeonhole yourself too early. Buying entry level is totally fine if you're an entry level person because you don't know what you need yet. So you might as well use something that's very general, very straightforward, and most importantly, relatively inexpensive so that you don't get yourself into financial trouble over something that you might not continue doing.
So I don't know. We're definitely not linking to this article, and I can't remember all the different useful ones that we have done. But Stuart, make a note that you're going to make a list for all of the entry-level kind of things where we talk about what kind of camera you should buy or entry-level type stuff. And we're going to link all of those down in the description for you so that if you're a person who's who's looking for an entry-level camera, you can get a good entry-level camera. We're not telling you to go out and buy a $6,000 Sony. This is as much as we would like.
I would like one of those.
A $6,000 Sony.
I would like
if you have the money to drop on one of those, maybe add 2 to cart and send one to us, please and thank you. Okay. All right. No. So let's kill two headlines with one stone here.
Yep.
His first subheadline and his last subheadline say exactly the same thing. It annoys me. Okay. So the first one is the best camera is not necessarily the one you have with you. Okay, well, but the one you don't have with you can't take the shot. So
I would argue that, speaking of fancy cameras, I'd argue that the Sony Alpha 1 is the best camera in many ways. I don't have one.
Yeah.
So what?
All right.
So there's some better camera that I don't own out on the shelf somewhere.
And then later down in the article, the last subheadline is your smartphone's camera good enough for what you need? No, that's not what we're arguing about today.
They're not the same thing. Smartphones are not entry-level cameras.
No, we're not arguing about your crappy Samsung Android. Yep. We're not even arguing about your really nice $1,000 iPhone. Neither of these compare. So what they're saying here is like, so if you're a wildlife photographer and you see this really nice bird out in a tree, you're going to pull out your iPhone and that's not good enough. No one's talking about iPhones. No one's like, hey, I'm going to be a wildlife photographer with an iPhone. This is a ridiculous statement to make. We're not talking about a phone versus a full sensor DSLR. What we're talking about is a $500 DSLR versus a $5,000 DSLR. And guess what? There's not a lot of difference.
No.
In fact, I know wildlife photographers that prefer lower end cameras that have crop sensors because that gets them an extra 1.3 to 1.6 zoom.
Yep. It's true. One of his points, as you just said, the difference between a $500 and $5,000 camera is not particularly significant. Well, he disagrees with that. He believes that professional cameras offer more space, in his terms, to grow into.
Okay, so here's the deal with this, okay? I also just remembered my dad called me asking for camera advice. I'll call you back as soon as we're done recording, Dad. Anyway, so my dad, love him, 70-something, and has no idea how to use a camera. But he would get absolutely nothing out of my fancy multi-$1,000 cameras. So when he said, hey, I need a really nice camera to be able to work on the project that he's doing right now, guess where I pointed him towards? I pointed him towards the $500 camera that I'm recording this podcast on right now, the Lumix
G85.
G85, thank you. Like, that's all you need.
Yeah.
And it is fancier than anything he has because he doesn't have one. And guess what? It can do everything he needs.
And really, for the most part, entry-level cameras and professional-level cameras do the same stuff. Like, genuinely, they have feature parity. Professional-level cameras are more about chasing increasingly small margins of better performance, and they are about functionality. Functionality-wise, they pretty much all do the same things nowadays, and it's just performance.
Absolutely. So
it's just like, the low light on this one is 1% better.
10 plus years ago, I've told this story so many times on this podcast, but 10 plus years ago, I had a Canon Rebel. Well, that Canon Rebel couldn't go above 800 ISO. It shot 12 megapixels. It shot 3 frames per second. I shot a wedding on that. Wasn't good, but I did it. And I realized, hey, these are the limitations I need. I don't necessarily need more frames per second, although that would be nice. What I really need is better autofocus, better low light. More megapixels so that I can print ginormous art wall prints that I want to sell my clients, even though that was a lesser concern. So the one that I got, it's 21 megapixels instead of 12 megapixels. It can do 9 frames per second instead of 3 frames per second. The autofocus is amazing. The ISO instead of 800 is like 120,000 something ridiculous, whatever it is. It's like,
but you also had the experience with that entry-level camera to know what you wanted to shop for in another camera.
That's exactly what I'm getting at.
Yeah. What if you had bought instead? What if you had started by buying like the 50 megapixel 5D, whatever those are, 5DR or something, and you had something totally wrong for your use case, and then you were frustrated and you spent all this money.
Actually,
right?
You've mentioned this on the podcast too.
Yeah.
I actually had a friend that said, I hate my 5DS. I'm like, why do you hate the 5DS? I own that camera. It's amazing. And he's like, yeah, I shot a wedding with it and it was garbage. I'm like, that's because it's not a wedding camera. Exactly. That is a in-studio like product photography camera. You're using the wrong tool, bro. But you're absolutely right. I had to use an entry-level camera so that I knew I can't afford a $100,000 camera that can do it all amazingly.
Yeah.
But what did I need? Well, these are the things that I knew my camera was holding me back on. So when I'm investing in the next one, these are the things I'm looking for. And I spent $3,000, not $10,000.
Yep. The entry-level camera was an investment in guidance and like path forward. It wasn't just a waste of money.
Yeah. So one of the other things that he means that he said is entry level is cheap garbage, and the thing that
we're paraphrasing, but basically,
am I paraphrasing though? So the example that this writer used is that if you have a guitar and it hurts your fingers to strum it because the strings aren't right and the neck is bending, then like you can't play that guitar. Just get a really expensive guitar. We're not saying get a broken camera. Entry level doesn't mean broken. Entry level doesn't mean bad.
No. And entry level means in many cases better than even like pro gear of like 3 to 5 years ago.
So I still shoot on a 5D Mark III, which is aging very fast. And I recently found this out because I am volunteering as the lead staff photographer for a event, and the two photographers under me have brand new Canon Rebels that are 2019 Canon Rebels, and they're better than my 5D Mark III.
But they're entry level, so they must be garbage.
But they're entry level, so they must be hot garbage, and these people have no idea what they're talking about. Come on, bro. What are you even saying right now? This is ridiculous. Your arguments are ridiculous.
Yeah, and I'm really just not sure where he's finding. Like, I would like to know. The unfortunate thing about this article is he doesn't provide examples, probably because they don't exist. But I would love.
wait. No. You can't just gloss by that. Because thank you so much for listening. That is our episode. No, seriously, they don't exist.
They don't exist. No. Seriously, I wish that I had seen one example of this like garbage entry-level camera that he's talking about, because truly thinking about the entry-level cameras from Nikon, Canon, Sony, whoever, I can't think of one that is truly like unusable garbage.
Stuart, if you look at his profile picture, he's like 100 years old, and he said he started photography when he was 7. So, he was using like lithograph large plate with the shroud over his head. So
hey, that's real professional level gear.
Yeah, bro. If you're not even shooting 8x10 large format, what are you even doing?
And these coming. If you want to look at it very cynically, these companies aren't incentivized to make garbage at the low end. If Nikon sells you a garbage entry-level camera,
you're going to switch brands.
Yeah, you're going to be like, screw this. Nikon makes crap, right?
What they want you to do is they want to make an amazing low-end entry-level camera. So that way you buy $10,000 worth of lenses.
Exactly.
And then when you need to upgrade, you're not jumping ship to Sony. You're sticking
with Nikon.
With that camera.
Yeah. So genuinely, I don't know where these garbage entry-level cameras are, because it would have to be broken. It would have to be like a broken entry-level camera, which is not the brand's fault. It's not the fact that it's positioned as an entry-level camera. I don't know where these exist.
Gosh, yeah. So
like, where do you buy a $100 DSLR?
You don't.
They don't exist.
So even 10 years ago, my DSLR was $500, and you're very hard pressed to get a good camera for under $500.
Yeah.
But what's the difference between a $500 camera and a $5,000 camera?
Not much.
Not much.
I would pre-episode we were having a little bit of a conversation, and the stat that I came up, now I made this up, but in my opinion, a $500 camera and a $5,000 camera have about 90% crossover. You're only chasing the last like 10% of performance in pro level gear.
Absolutely. And in fact, we were talking about what's the difference between this $500 Lumix camera and my many $1,000 Canon camera. And the first thing that I was talking, he's like, is there, so one of the, I'm getting so distracted because we're so mad about this. So one of the other things that this guy said is, and I'm not paraphrasing, this is a direct quote. Stick with us. It's stupid. Okay. If someone has the intelligence to get their head around the exposure triangle, then there's nothing on a flagship camera they won't learn to use. Yeah, there's nothing on an entry-level camera they won't learn to use either. And then Stuart and I were sitting here scratching our heads and be like, okay, but what is on an...
what's the difference?
And I'm just sitting here going like, there's no difference. Flagship cameras, they have better sensors, better autofocus, better processors, more expensive electronics, just better systems, stuff put into them.
Yeah. But the stuff
they're
can
like
do,
weather sealed, you know. Yeah. But like, what? That's all just like software, if you will.
Yeah.
Like, what is actually
like
the
physically
difference?
different?
What features do they have that a low-end camera has? What is actually different? And I started listing off all the things that are different. I'm like, well, the scroll wheel on my Canon is slightly more comfortable on the back, and also I can thumb it around versus on the Lumix. It has a scroll wheel, but it's kind of in a weird position, and I kind of like this motion better. Also, my Canon has a joystick versus those ones just have toggle buttons. It also has a lock so that I don't accidentally scroll when I press it to my face. You know, and then Stuart's like, so it's like more ergonomic.
Yeah, it's easier to use.
It's easier to use. Yeah, that's it. I also have 3 different channels that I can save settings to. So when I'm shooting a wedding, I have an indoor setting, an outdoor setting. Well, rather outdoor sun and outdoor shade setting. At the beginning of a wedding day, I just kind of save those to my camera, and then I'm just kind of flipping through those 3 camera settings.
So literally, it's easier to use the professional gear. Yeah, and
it doesn't have fancy features.
And if only like. That actually would have been a legitimate argument in this article that I would not have had a good response to if he had said buy professional level cameras because they have more features, they're easier to use, you know, they have you can save different memory slot settings and whatever. Like I'd be like, oh yeah, actually
dual
fair
memory
enough.
card slots for backing up.
I'd be like, oh, fair enough. Like that's actually a legitimate reason to spend more money on a camera.
But
he didn't.
That's not in this article.
He didn't.
No, it's not.
Like, dude, you were so close. You were this close to a good argument, and you let it just fly out the window by, well, if you understand the exposure triangle, you're a unique genius that can understand any camera feature. Like, let's be honest.
Lord.
The exposure triangle isn't that difficult to understand.
It's not. I have a very quick 2-minute video that I will also link. So screw you. Not you, listener. We love you. I mean the guy who wrote this article, right?
All right. Here's something that I came up with again as sort of an overall response to this stuff. Like growing out of an entry-level camera. Like this he keeps kind of through multiple points here. He keeps saying like growing out of an entry-level camera is bad. Like eventually buying an entry-level and then buying professional gear is bad. No, wrong. I disagree. I disagree.
Why do you disagree, Stuart?
Well, you grew.
Absolutely.
Why is growing bad? Why do you have to? You can't just instantly start at the top end level.
I have a question.
Why is growing bad?
When you had a kid, did you buy your toddler adult jeans? Yeah. No, you bought them jeans that fit them, and when they grew out of them, they get new jeans.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing. Growth is good.
This is ridiculous. And the last one that we'll touch on here for this article is not everyone can afford top end cameras. Yeah, neither can we.
Yep.
We've been doing this for 10 years and we can't afford top end cameras. But he's like, okay, but all the really famous people, like they don't even mention what camera they use. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter.
Well, and he even like name drops Ansel Adams as like not mentioning what camera they use. Dude, he did not use a Sony Alpha 1.
This is so ridiculous. You know what else they don't name drop because they know it doesn't matter. And do you know why they use the highest end, most expensive stuff? Because their clients are paying them $100,000 plus, and they can afford a Hasselblad.
Yeah,
like, duh. But you know what
also,
else?
It doesn't matter. There's so many professionals that shoot with lower end stuff occasionally and have published good work that's respected. Like, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And they don't talk about it because it doesn't matter.
Yeah. I shot a billboard for the side of a bus for a jewelry company on a 5D Mark III, so suck it.
Anyway.
Oh, God.
Rant over.
Rant over. Cheers. Bottom up.
Entry-level cameras are not bad. Please, if you're starting out, do not fall into the hype around pro-level gear. Start with something reasonable. Start with something, I guarantee you'll be able to do a tremendous amount of growth in it. Don't blow your paycheck on something that you're unsure about and don't know what direction you should go in. Please do not.
And if you're an editor for a photography blog company, do better. Okay, thank you. Goodbye.
We'll leave it at that.
If you have questions or ideas for future episodes, you can email us at hello@photo-op.show.
Watch us on Ben's YouTube channel at NomCreative.
As in Om Nom Nom.
Share this with a friend, and you can listen to Photo Op anywhere podcasts are sold.
Or download it. 'Cause it's free.